Shannon defines public-private partnership as a medium to long-term contract between government entities and private party with clear agreement related to the objectives. The public means in this study provided by state or organizations belongs to the state, and private means owned by individuals or independent commercial company. The partnership means the agreement to cooperate to achieve mutual goals. FAO defines IUU fishing as unauthorized fishing and fishing activities conducted by breaking of regional, national or international rules and regulations. There are three main components, as you can see in the screen: illegal, unreported and unregulated. Illegal means fishing that violates laws of fishery promulgated by the authority. Unreported means fishing which is not declared or misreported to the authority. Unregulated means fishing by unregistered vessels or vessels without nationality, or flying a proud flag or a flag which is not responsible for that craft. When we are considering the background of the study, Sri Lanka is a country surrounded by sea, located in South Asian region, as you know. The entire coastline is some 1,340 kilometers, including 14 main fishery harbors. The fish industry of Sri Lanka has a long history, and the industry contributes national economy, bringing the foreign currency. Due to the lucrative amount of money, so this activity is becoming illegal. These illegal activities have direct bearing towards maritime security of the nation. Countless damage is also done to the maritime environment by these illegal activities. Sri Lanka Coast Guard was able to minimize such attempts with the collaborative works with government stakeholders, especially during our many studies found that large percentage of private stakeholders in fishery industry are disregarded. My study focused to establish public-private partnership in Sri Lanka. This kind of partnership might create a favorable situation to Sri Lanka Coast Guard as public stakeholder to combat IUU fishing. The research question is which factors will affect establishment of private partnership with Sri Lanka Coast Guard combating IUU fishing in Sri Lanka. Now, I will brief you about the significance of the study. The production of seafood is providing considerable amount of contribution towards our economy, as I said earlier. Sri Lanka had secured the second place exporting chilled swordfish and tuna to European Union especially. There were many disturbances occurred due to IUU fishing, and it is essential to maintain regulated fishery activities around the sea area to maintain the maritime safety and security. Sri Lanka Coast Guard functioning marshalling officers in main fishery harbors in order to monitor and regulate the fishing boats, and it was found that most of key players in fishing industry from private sector, but the participation for regulating these private stakeholders is very minimum, and the outcome of the illegal activity is affecting to the entire nation, including private sector. And the resource interdependency is key factor which is used to make partnerships. And resource management is paramount important in nation. The result of this study will support to establish partnership between private and public entities. So, as I said earlier, such partnerships may support SLCG to conduct effective count operations for IUU fishing. The methodology of this research followed mixed method, both qualitative and quantitative aspects. The primary data collected through questionnaire from the officers from Sri Lanka Coast Guard and members of Fishing Boat Owners Association Sri Lanka. At the same time, I conducted some interviews of key persons of Sri Lanka Coast Guard, and I distributed questionnaire in among Japan Coast Guard officials and the Japan Fisheries Cooperation Association members to study the Japanese system since I was studying Japan. The economic policy preferences and favorable socio-economic factors were studied by using primary and secondary data, and existing efforts towards combating of IUU fishing also studied. And I focused on the Japan system because as a developed nation and Vietnam system as a progressive nation to find answers for this problem. The Japan system I selected because of the accessibility to the data, and Vietnam system as a countermeasure. Their countermeasures were very effective to improve the fishing standard in their country. Most important things are findings, and in this study I found that fishery resource is considered as renewable until it is managed properly and has sustainable consumption. So, states which do not comply with the regulations have been receiving warnings, and their exports and everything was banned. Government effort to combat IUU fishing is ineffective without getting necessary contribution from the private stakeholders, as private stakeholders are holding key area in this industry. Resource interdependency, leadership, and other socio-cultural factors are critical for the establishment. Survey confirmed that IUU fishing in Sri Lankan waters is a critical challenge, and establishing a partnership is welcomed by both public and private parties. Technical assistance as main resources for private sector and the information related to fishery operations is a key resource for the SLCG is seeking. Peer pressure highlighted as an important socio-cultural factor that can impact fishermen who conduct illegal activities in the same community. Advanced law enforcement agencies like Japan Coast Guard are also facing so many difficulties and challenges to combat this IUU fishing alone. Situational crime prevention can help in combating IUU fishing by preventing opportunities used by the perpetrators. Punishment itself is less beneficial because these kind of hazards are done to the environment. So, of course, punishment will correct the people but not the environment. Lack of mutual trust and lack of communication are main challenges for this partnership. Establishment of effective communication, development of mutual trust, and horizontal coordination with positive mutual preferences, resource interdependence, such as information and technical assistance, leadership, preference by Sri Lanka Coast Guard, and socio-cultural conditions such as voluntary compliance due to peer pressure are the main factors I have identified in my study. Increasing of the mutual benefits through development of trust can strengthen the partnership, which can eliminate IUU fishing from Sri Lanka in the long run. I have made some policy implications as a result of my study, such as establishment of partnership between Sri Lanka Coast Guard and private fishery stakeholders, establishment of flow of information through horizontal coordination, which is required to functioning of fishing marshalling officers, operating marshalling officers based on situational crime prevention theory, using the information received from private fishery stakeholders to prevent crime rather than punishing them. So, promotion of awareness program related to illegal fishery standards. Providing technical assistance to the fishing community when the hour of need. Circulation of economic requirements of the private fishery stakeholders as a supportive partner with, to the other government organizations, and sharing our views as a mediator to obtaining some support for these private stakeholders. Projection of the progress of countering IUU fishing with the PPP framework for regional and international institutions, and ultimately achieve the removal of international market restrictions. With that, I have come to the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for your patient attention.
Thank you, Commander Udita Gamage, for the presentation of that abstract. It was quite interesting, the conversation. I think we'll have good questions coming up as well. Before I ask my questions, I would like to check with the panelists whether they would like to go first. Would you like to ask this?
Mr. Commander Udita Gamage, I observed under this methodology, so you have basically I think you have concentrated the deep sea or the large scale I think, but you will have to narrow down up to the small scale as well. In that case, you should have go through the officers of Sri Lanka Navy as well as fisheries officers, DA force, and also customs, preventive division, under the marine division of the preventive division of customs. If you direct your questionnaire through these areas as well, you could get more information and more, it can narrow down. So get better information. So that is one thing. Another thing, of course, so finally, if you make some recommendations, it's much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Gunawardena, would you like to go next?
Area, hence our ocean area is 8 times larger than land area. It is very difficult to control IUU fishing along public sector agencies. Therefore, we have to have mechanism to obtain private sector contribution. But meantime, it is better to, if you include something related to the, if you analyze legal regime available in Sri Lanka to carry out such a new system, it is better, because you know that any system that allow only we have legal provisions. Maybe in Vietnam or Japan, they have legal regime to have a, but it is better when you carry out your study, if you analyze available legal regime in Sri Lanka to introduce such a system. That is not a question actually, that is a comment for improvement.
Thank you very much, sir.
Commander Gamage, I have a few questions. So when you define private-public partnerships, you've taken one definition. I think there's not a fixed definition on what this constitutes. But
Yes.
Looking at your abstract, it appears that you are looking at individuals who are, am I correct? Yes. So is it or companies?
It's something like community-based, not individual. Actually, it's like societies, fishing societies, because I conducted my study on the fishing boat owners organizations, some organizations which are representing fishermen. We will not be able to get individual fishermen for this kind of process, because to make a partnership, we need to have some kind of structure. In that case, I preferred to get organizations who are representing fishermen.
No, I asked that question because when you're talking about public-private partnerships, usually you're looking at the profit-making ventures and the public entities. So if it's a company, that would be a clear-cut public-private partnership, in my understanding. If it's a society, it could be a non-profit or a community also. So how you word it might be important in this case, because it's not very strict, the definition, but that venture of profit being involved in a private-public partnership is usually there. And also, when you had said you you have done a survey with a group of companies or individuals or fishermen.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So how did you select them? Could you just did you have a location, or is it at a national level?
Actually, I selected them based on the southern part of Sri Lanka, because the southern part of Sri Lanka is most commonly used for the fishing activities, for deep sea and just ease of fishing. Because of that, I selected the participants of my survey in the southern coastal area.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm asking these questions because it's a very interesting research, and I second what Mr. Gunawardhan was saying about looking into the structures that facilitate these processes. It's not just about fishing aspect, but overall in the marine environment, this would be a beneficial thing to look at. Can I open the floor? Sorry, did you want to say something? Okay, no. So hold on, there might be questions from the audience. Would anyone like to? Yes, Dr. Khan.
Thank you, Dara, for your impressive presentation. Actually, my personal idea is that your recommendations are a bit hypothetical. But in real case, as Mr. Samathan mentioned, in show IUU fishing, for example, boxing nets, spear fishing, and blast fishing. Do you have some practice? And the spear fishing are used, and at the same time, blast fishing is happening in most of the places around the country. So those are IUU fishing, the gears that was comes under IUU category. So do you have some practical solutions, or what are your the opinion how to stop this fishing happening in around the country? That's my first question.
There is main thing is obtain the information. So since the Coast Guard is functioning in year 2010, to get information. Main thing, that's why I suggested during my study to make a partnership to obtain basically information. So in Sri Lanka Coast Guard, actually during my study it was found that the information is the main resource that we are seeking to make this kind of partnership. So if we get this kind of information, so we will be able to utilize our assets to enforce law, or rather than to make some kind of peer pressure, generate the peer pressure within this fishing community by conducting awareness programs, we will be able to eliminate this type of activities, illegal fishing activities.
Yes. Yeah, the issue is that lots of information are available. The information is passing to Coast Guard and even police and even for Navy. But still, this illegal fishing is happening in our waters. That's why I want to really focus. I would have a focused answer for me. No issues. The second one is my last question. So you discussed, your main topic is about the private-public partnerships. See, in this case, you are focusing on the government, the fishing communities and the fishing the NGOs and those sort of things. Any private agencies you are looking for in this case to get some information or support in this whole the controlling of IUU fishing? Any private companies or something, if you have in your mind?
Actually, sir, I conducted this study within something like 8 months. So in my study, I just focused on the fishing community only. If we can get some, basically, we can join some insurance companies and some banks also. So we will be able to get some information related to the financial issues. In that case, we will be able to utilize those information to catch the perpetrators effectively. But I was given only 8 months. So I guess I couldn't expand my area to that company level. So that's why I just focused on this fishing community and their organizations to make a partnership to get basically what we can obtain by this private sector who are engaged with real fishing job. So that's why I focused on this some kind of making a partnership. If we can connect those financial authorities, we will be able to get different type of information. So we will be able to fix the people who are earning a lot of money without following legal process.
Okay, so thank you, Commander Gamagi. I'll close the questions now and move to the next presenter. Thank you very much for your abstract presentation. The next.
for providing the opportunity to share thoughts, and thank you very much for the questions.
So, thank you. Now let's move to the next abstract. Applause for Lanka. Our next presenter is Ms. Sanasha Ekanayaka. She's going to present on the multi-stakeholder engagement in marine and coastal ecosystem conservation.
Hello everybody and good afternoon. My name is Sanasha Ekanayaka and I'm part of a research group that included Pimali Dharmakirti, Tiridi Gunatilaka, Tatshajani Kandasamy, Mayantha Malkasinghe and Dennis Monga. And research that we focused was multi-stakeholder engagement in marine and coastal ecosystem conservation. Let's start off with the outline of this presentation. We focused on the background that included the importance of multi-stakeholder engagement, marine and coastal ecosystem conservation, and multi-stakeholder engagement and the private sector. Then we move on to the methodology, followed by our research findings. The main research questions that actually guided this paper was what is the potential for multi-stakeholder approaches to enhance ecosystem conservation, particularly to the marine and coastal sector. And some of the points that guided this included the institutional landscape we learned was somewhat fragmented, and there are many different actors relevant to conservation of coastal and marine ecosystems. These include but are not limited to tourism, coast conservation, urban development, public administration, industries, shipping and logistics, fisheries and aquatic resources and waste management. Multi-stakeholder engagements and partnerships are important because they facilitate an environment that is inclusive, participatory, context-based and often governed by priorities. Another an important aspect in the creation of multi-stakeholder partnerships is the opportunity for communications between different groups of stakeholders, and these include national level government agencies, civil society and community groups, as well as the private sector. And this communication then becomes very relevant in the context of implementing our climate processes such as the Sustainable Development Goals and nationally determined contributions. Finally, another response to our research question was that multi-stakeholders can benefit from sharing experiences, coordinating their efforts, exchanging best practices, and working together to jointly engage in multi-level activities such as the development of a waste management plan, the conservation of mangrove habitats. Very briefly, a background to the coastal and marine sector. Coastal and marine ecosystems provide a range of services to the environment, including flood and erosion control and also livelihood opportunities for communities living around them. However, such ecosystems in Sri Lanka are threatened due to anthropogenic activities such as prawn farming, hotel development, and the expansion of human settlements along the coastline. Before moving on to methodology, we want to also maybe briefly speak on multi-stakeholder engagement and the private sector. Public-private partnerships and the private sector play a large role in multi-stakeholder partnerships and engagement, and it becomes important when implementing actions related to restoration and conservation. Multi-stakeholder partnerships also open up different avenues for financing in communities and projects. This can be seen in, for example, with the CSR initiatives of Mitsubishi Corporation, Tokyo Cement and Dilma Tea here in Sri Lanka. Moving on to our methodology, so one of the first things we did was that we analyzed we also conducted extensive desk research from Sri Lanka as well as research that's available globally. The literature that we selected was based on a number of criteria related to source relevant keywords and methodological robustness, using a range of academic and non-academic databases to identify relevant studies, journal articles and project reports from the last 10 years. Finally, we also conducted expert interviews, focus group discussions, and stakeholder consultations with sector experts. The discussions enabled the collection of success stories and challenges of the multi-stakeholder engagement related to the coastal and marine sector, as well as other sectors whose content might be applicable. In total, we conducted 70 meetings with communities and stakeholders and 7 stakeholder consultations. This brings us to our research findings. We have 4. First, multi-stakeholder engagements are vital and effective to ensure successful implementation and sustainability of both the national targets in the coastal and marine sector, as well as international commitments, including national determined contributions. Using best practices and adopting published research from other countries are relevant to enhancing multi-stakeholder engagement in the marine and coastal sector in Sri Lanka. Multi-stakeholder engagement and partnerships are important because they facilitate an environment that is inclusive, participatory, context-based, and often governed by priorities. Multi-stakeholder collaboration also encourages better communication and data sharing mechanism across and between focal points. Regular coordination of planning and actions through in-person or virtual meetings are required to have sustained engagement with all relevant stakeholders in a given area. And finally, forming multi-stakeholder partnerships have been found to be an effective way to engage with the community at large and facilitate better communication between groups and within communities, leading to increased stakeholder engagement and locally led initiatives, especially that of marine conservation and restoration. Thank you for your attention, and yes.
Thank you, Ms. Ekanayaka. Before I go, I'll provide the opportunity to the esteemed panelists to ask any questions they might have. Would you? No.
Yes, that is again very important because in Sri Lanka there are several players among government sector, private and non-government. However, there is no integration among these agencies. But I think that before 3 decades earlier, integrated coastal zone management introduced to overcome this issue. Integration means really among relevant agencies, among the resources and everything. But here in Sri Lanka, we don't have such an integration. That is why we have several issues. But you have not identified the sectors and the why we have issues, how we overcome these issues using multi-stakeholder platform. Only some, based on the desktop research, you have find some information, but you have not given conclusion that how we can use this multi-stakeholder system to improve our present system.
Thank you, sir. So one of the first, the methodology that we used was actually to analyze the existing multi-stakeholder landscape. So the stakeholder consultations that we did, as well as the stakeholder consultations that we did and the expert group meetings, this facilitated that. We didn't, for the second question that's in the paper, we didn't actually include that part of the conclusion. But what you said, we have captured through these discussions.
Ms. Lahandapura, yes.
This is actually an extension of Jagat's question. It is actually very vital that all these stakeholders work together collaboratively. But then the challenges and also the history. Now, there are many efforts taken during these recent years to work collectively, collaboratively. Many initiatives were taken. But then the learnings of those things, like why those things failed, what was the issue, the challenges of getting all of them into one platform is one of the key concerns that we have. I think that was not included in your scope. Maybe that would be a very interesting area for us to know. So maybe as an extension of the research, you can do that, and if you can let us know the more importantly, the failures, reasons for failures, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel, because this has been doing for a long time, for a considerable time of period, many attempts. We have a lot of stakeholders. Many attempts were taken to get all of them into one platform, but then it failed. So, just a suggestion. Maybe it would be another extension of your research to identify and so that it would help us to know the reasons and continue, take some further steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. for your suggestion.
Okay. Do you want to add anything else? No. Okay. Just a few comments from my end. So I agree with all the comments that have been received, and it's very important to have these lessons documented so people can go ahead and do something differently and improved. And one more thing you can potentially do would be to look into different structures that are there, or policies, the recent ones at least, that have a setup which includes stakeholder engagement. For example, the mangrove policy has this as a component. I'm not aware whether there's more. There might be, so looking into this would be good. And also, given the first abstract also had something very similar, looking at how different stakeholders could engage in this sector and then facilitating through a mechanism that's inclusive and participatory could be something that is a focus also, given that the symposium itself focuses on climate action plus SDGs, which have this component of stakeholder engagement, and internationally also this is a focus. So if you can document this as a research, would be a good example to share with the world as well. So thank you. From my end, that's done. I hope everyone is happy with the presentation too. Okay.
Thank you very much, and thank you to my research team as well as the questions.
Okay, so we have two more abstracts to be presented. First one is on scaling up climate action by enhancing coastal and marine ecosystem conservation into Sri Lanka's nationally determined contributions. This is going to be presented by K.S. Edirivira. Mr. K.S. Edirivira, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone, Madam Chair, panelists, and all distinguished guests. My topic for the research is scaling up climate action by enhancing yeah.
So we've been having difficulties, I think, since morning with this cable. I'm not sure why it's...
Thank you. My research topic for the research symposium is scaling up climate action by enhancing coastal and marine ecosystem conservation into Sri Lanka's NDCs. This is not an individual effort. This is a collective effort. So I myself is there, and Sahana Ravishankar, Sajani Ranasinghe, Chalani Marasinghe, Ashankar Rananda, Senashi Ekanayaka, and Dennis Momber, part of the team. And the team, of course, comprised of people who are part of the legal fraternity in Sri Lanka, in the domestic legal framework, and also people who are enthusiastic about the policies and about international law. So it was a team effort. So I'm here presenting it. Let me take you through the presentation outline. I have introduction. Under introduction, I believe most of the people must be aware of the NDC's nationally determined contribution. If just to make it clear, I thought of making an introduction to nationally determined contributions and the existing NDCs in the coastal and marine sector of Sri Lanka. And then the second one is objectives of the research, and then methodology, key areas for scaling up climate action in coastal and marine sector, identifying gaps and needs in legal and policy processes to scale up climate action, and identified areas for improvement, identified synergies and entry points, and the conclusion. As for the introduction, since my topic is mainly focused on NDCs of Sri Lanka and in this particular coastal and marine sector, I thought of giving a brief introduction as what is NDCs. So as per the decision 1 of CP21 of the 2015 Paris Agreement, 196 countries signed with the aim of keeping global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels and seeking measures to keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius. In order to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement through common but differentiated responsibilities, parties submitted their nationally determined contributions to UNFCCC, which is a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, to outline their independently determined commitments towards reducing GHG emission and other climate action. In the Sri Lankan context, Sri Lanka submitted its intended nationally determined contributions in 2015. I think it's one of the few countries who presented it in early, and then ahead of the Paris Agreement, and been signed, and its NDCs in 2016. So NDC's national determined contributions of Sri Lanka focus on 4 main areas: mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage, and means of implementation. At the present, Sri Lanka is in the process of finalizing its second NDCs. Second is in the sense national determined contribution. Initially, it's a 5-year reviewed process. So this is something that's evolving throughout the process. So it's my next slide. Outline the NDCs that are relevant to the research topic of ours. These are the current NDCs for the coastal and marine sector. This is at the moment, but this is that has 5 NDCs we have submitted. In addition to these commitments, these are commitments. In addition to these commitments, there are also 5 strategic policies were also included under this sector. So this is something that's evolving. Every 5 years, we need to submit NDCs of each sector. So this is the second area I'm focusing on. These are the objectives of this research. The first one is identifying key areas to be enhanced to scale up climate action in the coastal and marine sector. Identify gaps and needs to be addressed in the policies and laws to contribute to enhancing climate action in the sectors. And finally, identify key actions and actors to scale up climate actions in the sectors, and identify possible synergies. So this research, when it comes to methodology, this has been a very extensive desk research that also include expert interviews and small group consultation, plus focus group discussions, and more importantly, inputs from many national workshops and dialogues that has happened throughout the last few years. Next is the key areas for scaling up climate action in the coastal and marine sectors. So these are our findings: enhancing mitigation actions through identified entry points, such as increasing the focus on ecosystem with high carbon sequestration capacity. Secondly, focusing on increasing resilience through climate risk reduction, adaptation actions, and other management processes. Third one, increasing means of implementation for climate action. There's a separate chapter that describes even in the overall indices for the means of implementation. So this is so those are example: finance sector, education and technology, and also scaling up partnerships for climate action and multi-stakeholder engagement and the initiatives. These are the key areas for scaling up climate action in the coastal and marine sector. So as I said earlier, so in the process, during the process of this desk research, we were able to review most of the government published available data, including key national documents related to climate change, sustainable development, disaster risk management and reduction, and all relevant sectoral policies, including tourism sector. This is something that we can't take as individual and make decisions. So there are sectoral other sectors that synergize the things. So fisheries sector, biodiversity sector, and also we also focused on following acts in the domestic legal framework. So Maritime Pollution Prevention Act, Coast Conservation Act, Conservation and Coastal Resource Management Act, the amendment, Coast Guard Act, Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Act, Forest Ordinance, Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, and National Environment Act. These are the main acts that we were focusing on, but there are a lot of other acts that we referred. In addition to that, we also reviewed a lot of international processes and mechanisms that have been ratified by the Parliament, and also other related mechanisms. Those are including United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, United Nations Fish Stock Agreement, and many agreements with the International Maritime Organization, and also Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, Sustainable Development Goals, and also International Mechanism for Loss and Damage. So those are the areas and the ways where we did to identify gaps and needs in legal policy. And as the next thing in our research, so we sort of identified areas for improvement. So first thing is creating a policy and legal environment to fast track actions related to high emission based outputs. we actually found out that it's not that there's no legal backing for many areas, but fast tracking, if we have a legal framework to fast track many of the actions for high emission based outputs would be good. And then integrating climate risk and other climate impacts on the sectors to enhance resilience, including risk management options, risk transfer tools to be introduced and applied at different levels. Also creating laws and policies that would providing an enabling environment for accessing finance and other means of implementation for NDCs. Integrate multi-stakeholder and multi-actor partnerships through policy interventions to the areas of climate action. I have given an example which was developed through the similar capacity. It's a policy, mangrove policy of Sri Lanka. So second one, improving institutional capacity building, including capacity to conduct legal proceedings. That's within the institutional capacity. So we identified some areas. Establishing body responsible for mapping of marine and coastal sector and coordinating body to maintain the cooperation between stakeholders, communities and institutions. That's something that we have identified during the process through expert interviews, national dialogues, and with the current documents available. So we also identified synergies and endpoints for this thing. So the ongoing NDC review process, as I said earlier, it's a evolving process. NDCs, it's every 5 years we need to review the thing, and then so on the ongoing NDC review process to address gaps and needs identified and actions to be integrated to it. NDC action plan to be developed for the implementation of updated NDCs, which could include key activities focusing on those gaps and needs identified. Other national laws and policies being developed, agriculture policy, environment policy, livestock policy. These are not wholly related to the sector that we are focusing on, but there are a lot of components that we can focus on when we are making this. And also SDG processes at national level and local levels, and also localizing of SDG targets. As we know, that's a document, it's a general document, but if we can localize those SDG targets, sometimes we can't apply it in locally. So if we can localize of SDG targets and integration of SDGs to the planning processes and interlink with NDCs of the sectors would be. And also Sendai framework related to data collection and actions to address climate risk and contribute to resilience building. So those are a few of the identified synergies and entry points that we found out during our research. And then here comes the conclusion. So as a conclusion, I would like to point out coastal and marine sector provide many opportunities for climate action and scaling up potential for climate mitigation and resilience building. So key areas to be enhanced and gaps and needs to be addressed include coordination between different stakeholders, capacity building of key stakeholders, and communication and exchange of information. And laws and policies at national level could contribute to enhancing the implementation of the actions through NDCs and providing opportunities to scale up climate action in Sri Lanka. Also existing processes such as SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and Sendai Framework for Disaster Management could contribute to increasing climate related activities in the coastal and marine sector. When it comes to gaps, our team rather than calling it a gap, we wanted to make it as an area to be enhanced than calling it gap. We word it in a way area that we could enhance. So we were focusing on those things. So that's the conclusion. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Edirivira, for that presentation. Would you like to go first, or can I make a few comments? But if you have comments, I'll wait for you first.
Actually, small suggestion. Good presentation. Here, in the identification of the gaps or the recommendation, you should have the pointing out there's a long outstanding gap in Sri Lanka in the international incorporating into the national legislation.
Right.
The same subject also, the law of the seas, climate change, all these many international conventions are there. We are ratified, but we have to have incorporated into our national legislation. That gap is still outstanding.
Right.
So, other than the local laws, we have to have this important area as suggestion.
Right.
Thank you.
Do you want to respond, or?
Of course, I mean, while we were researching on the same thing, so there are a lot of mechanisms, international processes that we have ratified, but I mean, there's a process. I mean, Sri Lanka is we are calling it a dualist country. Where it is dualist country, so there is a delay, and we can call it a delay.
Long outstanding.
The process noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kavindu. Mr. Gunawardhan.
Actually, our NDCs, some NDCs not actually identified shipping and port sector as an important sector, and internationally, a lot of action have been taken to reduce emission from the shipping sector and port sector, especially MAPOL Annex 6, air pollution prevention from ships, which has recently amended, which incorporated most of the things related to the shipping sector. But when you go through the other indices, they have not identified these things, and there is no target. But you have not identified these things, but you have given some IMO convention, things like that. You have not identified these areas in your
particularly
your
on
research.
I was actually, I'm sorry, was referring to only to the indices of the marine and coastal sector. So we were referring to the existing ones, but that's something that we can bring out in the review process. We can introduce introduce them to have those areas also covered in the review process in the long run.
Thank you. Could I request Mrs. Lahandapura and President's Counsel Sarat Jaman if you have any questions?
Well, yes. I noticed a small correction that you need to do in the presentation. It is not Maritime Pollution Prevention Act. It is marine, not maritime. Just a small this thing. And now in your presentation you suggested that to have a coordinating body to map and to coordinate, to map and to coordinate a body. I mean, at the end of your conclusions or the suggestions, don't you think that this mapping of the coordinating body would be MEPA? I'm just asking you. Because we have our mandate, not because I'm representing MEPA, but our mandate includes the coastal area plus the entire marine zone, EEZ, right, up to EEZ. So wouldn't that be the agency? I'm just asking. Or else, what is your suggestion? So what do you suggest?
We would be very happy if it is MEPA.
No.
I'm
asking you why you have suggested
maybe,
that to have a different
in the sense, coordinating in the sense,
agency.
maybe while we were looking at it can be, while building, I mean, at the moment I'm not sure if the MEPA has that the capacity, in the sense the
mandate, you mean?
not the mandate. If you have the, I mean, mandate, it's it. Many to work on many areas that are related to this sector, marine and coastal sector. If we can have the, I'm just thinking of the word that I should capacity, in the sense personal, individual capacity. I mean, if you can have those things and then have a, I mean, that's what we are suggesting, fast track actions. If you can take the responsibility, since you have the mandate, lot of I mean, for this sector, if we can integrate those stakeholders and then build on it, that would be very good. So that's one way to fast track actions, I guess.
Yeah. Now, just a comment. Now, when we looked at the Act, Marine Pollution Prevention Act, we identified one area missing is that what is this? Marine resource management. Because
Right.
Other than there are marine resources other than fisheries, other than corals, other than mangroves.
Right.
So these resources are left out, and nobody in Sri Lanka is looking after taking care of those oceanic or marine resources. So we actually have included that into our act, and we have sent that for amendment.
Right.
And also another thing is that, as correctly Mr. Samathagunasekara mentioned, we have not included all these international conventions and laws into our legal domestic law. So we also have included that in our newer amendment. Plus, we thought of actually just going towards the blue economy to make it more. Now we are a regulatory body, so to act more onto the commercial part of it, or to manage marine resources, we also have included provisions, yet to get the approval from the cabinet, but we have identified all those things. And if you can consider that part as well, and also if you can advise us or justify us what are the resources that we would like to, we have to improve the capacity at the organization, I think it would help us to improve ourselves, because we have planned and we have said we have actually done the foundation to build upon that. Would like to get your suggestions that you mentioned, that the individual capacities or whatever, maybe you can send that even in person. That's okay. Thank
We
you.
would be very happy as a collective effort. Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I will quickly sum up. President Council, would you like to? No, okay. Just a quick addition to what Mrs. Lahandapura mentioned. I think capacity assessment could be based on, since it came into question, maybe the technical capacity is related to certain areas of climate change, and also the NDCs in the marine sector would have different components like the biodiversity aspect and other elements that relate to it. Forestry can be there. So the coordination aspect could be with MEPA, while the others are part of a mechanism where they are represented, I believe. Given the suggestion that came in, I'm just adding a few points. And one thing I also wanted to point out is that while you have marine sector and coastal sector, energy, transport, and other elements like tourism, where you have mitigation and adaptation together, could be brought into this as well. I think we'll hear more in the next discussions also, and I find it very interesting that all three presentations had that component of having a stakeholder process, the partnership aspect, And given that MEPA's mandate is also being enhanced, how these could be incorporated in going forward would be something very interesting to look at. And one final comment on the NDCs, I think it's in the final version now. It would be very good if the entities look at the things based on what we discussed and see whether these are there or not, because otherwise we'll have to wait another 5 years to incorporate them. So yes, thank you. You want to say something, Dr. Tani? Would you like? No, okay. Okay, so thank you very much, Kavindu.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Rivera. Now we shall move to the last abstract. Applause. We have a presentation from R. Vitanage. I'm not entirely sure whether, yes, okay, because there was a note here for you, so okay. So it's going to be on initiation and facilitation of an awareness program on ocean literacy to integrate coastal and marine biodiversity education into the curriculum of school education system of Sri Lanka. Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and dear panelists. First of all, I'd like to thank for giving us this opportunity to present our efforts. So a little bit about myself. I'm representing Lanka Youth Network. I'm an active volunteer member, as well as we have recently formulated a club called Sustainable Ocean Alliance, and we are currently acting as hub leaders there as well. So today I'm going to present to you about an awareness program that we recently had, to be exact, on April 1st, and at a school level, where we initiated and facilitated a program to school children in order to promote ocean literacy. And these efforts were done to integrate a curriculum, a revised curriculum, to the national school level education system. This is a very huge collaborative work, so I would like to introduce my team. The idea was initiated by to school children. So this would be an initiation, and we're hoping to integrate it into the national saying that you will be the ocean, which you have to conserve the ocean. So if you don't, it will be again a bad effect to you. Then we start to build a teacher's guide to the same curriculum. So phase 3 would be, we would be delivering teacher trainings, and then a combine of school curriculum and teacher's guide we would like to propose is to a national education system, like we'd like to propose it to the ministry. And phase 4, which is very important, we have the suggestions of monitoring it thoroughly, because we want to have connections with the schools that we communicated and to build a good network with them. More about monitoring. Which was close near to the Shangri-La Resort. And target audience was children aged between 13 to 15 years, representing grade 8, 9, and 10. Also the teachers and principal. So collectively there were 25 children having membership from environmental pioneer groups. Day 1 of the school session, school program. So the session 1 was introduction of basic sea animals. So the objective was had very engaging sessions, because these grades are these children are not very much fans of looking at a screen and understanding what's going on. So we had to come up with a lot of innovative group activities to have their attention with us. So we introduced the basic sea animals. Also, we showed them specimens that we could found around this conservation site near to the resort, and introduced those animals as well. So these are some of the pictures that we had this session, where we introduced some of the specimens that we found around the conservation site near this resort. The session 2 is about turtles that we selected to do. The objective was to give them the basic understanding about turtles, and also the types of turtles that you can find in Sri Lanka as well as worldwide, and how to protect them, their habitat and threats. So how we had their attention was, we gave them, we challenged them with a drawing competition. We gave them a skeleton of, a sketch of turtles, and then we introduced the 5 types of turtles that you can find in Sri Lanka and asked them to draw. Like, we asked them to actually color them, which they did very beautifully. It was really amazing and very attractive. You can actually see the pictures that they enjoyed. They enjoyed the session very much. Also, they knew their bra 5 types, and that they can actually identify the, distinguish the features. Day 2 was a Saturday. So we asked the children to come back to school and be prepared for a snorkeling training session. So we took the children to the conservation site, which is managed by Shangri-La Resort. And the objective was to introduce them snorkeling and train them, and also to give an opportunity for them to observe underwater, and also to introduce them how to do the best practices in snorkeling in a way that you don't disturb what you see underwater. So they actually enjoyed it a lot, and it was it was a very challenging session because we had to, we took a huge responsibility, and we got the support from lifeguard savers from the resort, and we only had 5 kids onto the water and let them see the corals underwater. It was around 4 to 5 feet of depth. So it was a very attractive session to them. So these are some of the pictures that we took underwater. The teachers and principals all were participated to the session. Second session of day 2, our idea was to like introduce them the ocean pollution and give a good capacity of understanding, but it was a bit challenging because they were already tired with having this session underwater, and so we didn't want to make them fatigue about it. So we only had around 30-minute duration of this session. We asked them to find the specimens that we showed them the day before, and to find them and to show us how they have been damaged by all these fishing gears and how they have been damaged by polythene and all. And then the session was concluded by having their feedbacks. So at the moment, I know it was just a 2-day workshop which we did for a single school. So impact of that program, I would say, was super positive because they actually haven't had this kind of a session before. They haven't had an opportunity to work with an external party and go out and do this kind of engaging activities. That's what the principal mentioned. This is the first time they've ever had this opportunity. So we knew that it's going to be a positive feedback. So when we asked what they learned, they said that they learned about sea animals, and that they said that they learned about the difference between tortoise and the turtle, and the 5 types, that there are 5 types of turtles in Sri Lanka, and their habitats. And also they loved the snorkeling session because 70% of kids didn't know what snorkeling is and about the gears, and I think 50% haven't even seen underwater that clear. So what they felt was, they all said that the sessions weren't boring, which was kind of an achievement to us because it was very challenging to have their attention grabbed, and they enjoyed. Their suggestions was, we actually only focused about sea animals and turtles, so they also want to know about sea plants, marine fauna, and also more snorkeling trainings, because it was very hard to take them out from ocean, and like we were struggling to take them out from the site. And also sessions on corals, because they saw corals underwater, so they were asking what are they, and we know. So this is just a simple graphical representation of what the feedback was. So overall, more than 85% were very happy about the workshop. And session 3 is showing the snorkeling session, which has very happy and super happy feedbacks. They were a bit lazy and were a bit out of focus for the first session because it was a bit of a continuation with sea animals, and starting from turtles and snorkeling and the ocean pollution, they had a good attention. But session 4, ocean pollution, was not that achievable because we couldn't actually deliver what we want. But yeah, so this could be, we can take this as a positive feedback. So next steps, we would actually be expecting more collaboration for this initiative. This would be a very baby step at the moment, but we are having collaborations from different schools, and we are going to talk to those principals and do the exact thing, but with a revised curriculum. And also formation of a teacher's guide, and having teacher training is going to be a very important part of this program. And also formation of clubs, or formation of an ocean ambassador army from each school, and have them communicated or have them connected with our circle would be a very very significant step here, because monitoring and continuation of this program is going to be the most challenging part. So we've yesterday on Earth Day, we had initiated the Sustainable Ocean Alliance Ambassador Army from the Higala Nanda Mahavidyalaya. This is one of the pictures we had. And we are going to have them in loop with our upcoming projects, as well as we're going to have them initiated a sort of a module and monitor their work, how would they perform and all. So yes, thank you so much for giving this opportunity today to present our effort, and I'd like to thank my team who's not here because half of the team went to the Earth Day session, so they couldn't come here. So I'd like to thank Sudarshan, and I'd like to thank MEPA for always being directing us and instructing us, and Sarani, Amali, and Malsha. So also to Resort Shangri-La for facilitating, and also to our old partners. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Vitanage. Would the panelists like to comment first, and then we pass to the floor?
Thank you very much. A very interesting presentation. It's timely need. What I see is timely need initiative. Therefore, actually, I would like to make a comment, as this is a session of the laws, policies, regulations related to the marine environment. Therefore, I would like to make a suggestion for you to make this a reality or to make this legal. So you will have to make a submission through the Ministry of, through the MEPA, or if not MEPA, to the Ministry of Environment. It should be go to the curriculum of education system. Then it will be reality, and it will go around. It will be good initiative. Should go around the country. It's very, very important. So I think in this day we can make an initiative. If you make initiative and make submissions to the MEPA. Yeah. Thank you very much. Just a comment, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Gunawardena,
Actually, this one kind of pilot project with the study, but you may not aware that MEPA has already taken initiatives. We have, as a MEPA, established more than 300 school marine groups in schools, and we develop teacher guides to educate students to the marine environment, and also we have taken several initiatives to introduce this subject into the school curriculum. Again, Ministry of Environment has taken several initiatives. They have already discussed with the Ministry of Education. Now they are in the process of amending curriculum. I think this nature involvement is necessary because they have to have practical engagement. Otherwise, school children, they cannot have a good idea why we should protect marine environment, what is the importance of marine environment. As a responsible agency, MEPA has already taken several initiatives.
Thank you, sir. So adding to that, what we noticed was the target groups that we had was grade 8, 9, 10, which is like, why we selected that age group was we can't actually take grade 11, 12 because they're already busy with all the exams and all. So we thought that maybe targeting the environmental pioneered societies, that would be easy for us to convince what we are doing. And we are trying to make it all hands-on, giving hands-on experience so that they won't lose the interest. But I really appreciate that for giving all these suggestions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other suggestions from the floor? If not, I'll quickly summarize what I jotted down. Just for your future presentations, I think it would be good at a research symposium to structure this in a manner it presents a research format, a methodology, because right now it sounds like a activity you've done, but it's not clear what you were trying to do and achieve. So it would be good to find the gaps that you need to address, why it's needed, and clearly present it, one. And also the way this is a qualitative research, right? So basically then how you would impact assess the output of it, because you have assumed that they were happy, but there needs to be an indicator of how you measured from the start to the end, what was the improvement and what did you achieve. And now hearing that Mr. Gunawardena and MEPA has a lot of these already going, on maybe you could look into what's already done and see what can be enhanced. Because if it's already there and one pilot is happening similar to what's already there, then it might be a waste of your time because the process is already ongoing. So how you can do it in a way that the ongoing system can be enhanced and then feeding it into the system from what you're doing would be good. I mean, I think everyone understands that this is a need, but to show it in a structured way that it would not be questioned when you say this is needed would be important, and that's, I think, where the research component comes in. And one suggestion, I think, to structure this and formalize this, I feel you could make use of the policy reforms that are happening for education at the moment. In the discussions that were there at the initial stages, it was highlighted by a lot of experts that there needs to be environment consciousness, mindful aspects in the education system. So this would be something going in line with this. How it can be formalized and introduced going forward in the policy process would be something you could look into, and I'm sure MEPA would be able to help in that process. Would anyone else want to add something? Yes, Mrs. Anwar.
Because both of them mentioned about the collaboration or getting support with MEPA, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to emphasize on the same thing. I do fully endorse, but then I'm actually very much concerned about the failures or the negative part of every project. Now you said 85% of the children, they're happy. What about the 15%? What was the reason? I'm actually very much concerned about the negative or the areas for improvement or areas for enhancement, as one of the presenters suggested. So what was that?
So I would say there were 2 sessions on the first day, which was they had to have their eyes on the screen. So the first session was a bit boring for them because sometimes they lose what we ask. When we asked the questions, we felt like we haven't actually given them the correct idea, so they were here and there. And then starting only from the second session only, we could get their attention. And then day 2 was all good, and we couldn't actually stop them going out to the ocean, and then we had to come. So I would say the first session was a bit, not a failure, but we could have invented it in a way that it is more and more engaging, and we could have given them more knowledge, like on other species as well, like on plants and like on corals, which we need to have a discussion on. And also we could not give them a module or a guide at the moment, which we might think that they may forget it from the next engagement session that we have. So those were the ideas behind the rest of the 15% that weren't happy. So
overall kind of average?
Yes, that was an average.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And one more suggestion, in case you didn't have an expert in education, having someone in the team would help you to monitor and impact assess also the different aspects by the age range, what they would be able to grasp and not. So thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of this session. I don't want to take a lot of time because I think we're running a bit late, and we are having a presenter waiting also from the UN in Bonn to speak with us. So I shall close this session with 2 points. One is how can we engage different actors in enhancing laws and policies related to the marine sector. That's one thing we could build and enhance from the research that has been highlighted. And awareness, education, and other means of implementation, finance, have been highlighted in all abstracts, which proves that there's a key interest in this, plus that it's a factor that keeps coming up in different sectors of research, not just laws, but then means of implementation. So looking into these aspects and seeing how they can be formalized through policies and other processes and mechanisms that are available would be helpful to see how actions in ocean-based solutions, as well as policy frameworks and climate action and blue economy, could be scaled up going forward for Sri Lanka. I would request if the panelists would like to add anything in closing, or else. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the chair of the panel and the panelists. We have a certificate presentation and presentation of mementos, which would go after going for the Zoom presentation. So we next have a presentation online presented by Ms. Rogina Mananda, Program Officer of Nairobi Work Program, UNFCCC Secretariat. She'll be presenting online. Yeah, can you hear us, Rogina?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, very clear. You could go. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, and thank you so much personally to Busita for this opportunity and for the Silicon Trust for this very nice opportunity to be present from Bonn in the symposium. I was listening in some of your earlier presentation, and they have been very insightful, and definitely it's very useful to see the work that's happening on the ground. What I think I was invited to speak to you about is the work we are doing with the UN Climate Change Secretariat, focusing on some of the work, and Silicon Trust is part of this work as a part of the expert group. So what I will walk through a couple of slides, and I will try to provide some insights from the work we have done so far, is how we are enhancing resilience of oceans, coastal areas, and ecosystems through partnerships with the Nairobi Work Program. Next slide, please. So the central idea here being parties have recognized there is a very strong recognition that the action on ocean and climate change adaptation under the UNFCCC process has to be strengthened. What it means, what is at the stake. As I think I have listened to some of your presentation on the research work, one of the essential aspect is to find meaningful ways to support countries, especially developing countries, in meeting their adaptation priorities, for example, laid out in the national in the NDCs. And that would mean you would help countries to increase the ability to adapt, build resilience of ocean, coastal areas and ecosystems. And the second complementing idea is what is at the stake is also the idea about how can the work link existing initiatives happening both under the outside the UNFCCC process. And this would then sort of promote this ocean climate nexus. The third is to expand the outreach of how we engage in a very inclusive manner, participation in the UNFCCC process, not just the national government and experts, but also broadly the communities and practice, communities of practice, to be part of this dialogue and process. And then finally, building synergy, as I mentioned, in terms of promoting the linkages with a lot of the work happening under and outside the UNFCCC process. So the role of the Nairobi Work Program is, in this context, what we are trying to achieve. Nairobi Work Program is a UNFCCC knowledge to action hub on adaptation and resilience, and as Busita has been very closely involved as one of our partners of the Nairobi Work Program, we focus on curating knowledge and also to close knowledge gaps that have been identified in different thematic topics in different countries, and oceans is one of our thematic priority area that we have been working since 2019. And we have been doing so with the expert group, Nairobi Work Program Expert Group. Silicon Trust definitely is one of our members. And next slide, please. So here, I just want you to sort of provide an overview of what does it mean for the work we are doing with the expert group on ocean under the Nairobi Work Program, and what it means in terms of closing knowledge gaps, for example. So as you've seen, we have this methodology. Some of you might be wondering what it means, knowledge to action, but essentially it's about understanding the knowledge gaps that have been identified by governments, by parties in the UNFCCC process, meaning all of us, including Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, South Asia, and also other parts of the world, but also to try to understand what these priorities mean for the organizations working in this area, meaning with the expert group, and try to find ways to design actions so that we can address some of those knowledge gaps. As you have seen in this methodology, it's a very iterative process. We are also trying to gather learning by this process. We've done a couple of a couple of actions and couple of achievements, I would say, milestones. For example, we have put together a scoping paper which outlines knowledge gaps in this specific thematic area of oceans. This was done with inputs from the expert group, which also led to the event which happened at the COP last year, COP25, which is called a Focal Point Forum. And what's happening at the moment is we are working with these expert group, which represents institutions globally who have been working on this topic, not just UN, but also scientific community and NGOs, for example. So we are focusing since last year on how to develop and implement some of the actions in closing these knowledge gaps. So if you go to the next slide. Here I provide a very quick overview of some of the actions that we are undertaking with the expert group on oceans, a Nairobi work program, and these essentially speak to what are the priorities that the countries have identified in relation to building resilience of oceans, and then translating these priorities into action. So, for example, as you see, one of the first output that we are producing shortly is a supplement to the UNFCCC NAP technical guidelines. And this would provide guidance to developing countries specific to the least developed countries and small island developing states, for example, on how to consider coastal and nature-based solutions when they're developing proposal to the Green Climate Fund. And this is all done also with the expert group. The second example is we are also working together with another expert group within the UNFCCC, which is called Technology Executive Committee. And the idea here is to organize the session around and understand how to integrate innovative technologies in integrating in terms of adaptation projects and policies. So I would not go through all of the example, but this will hopefully give you an example of how what these actions look like. And what does it mean? We also have been a part of the dialogue, which took place last year on ocean space under the UNFCCC process. So a lot of the actions emerging out of this group, as you see, is we are bringing the experts from these organizations and institutes they represent as an expert group, and using this experts lens, understanding what the knowledge gaps are from countries in implementing NAPs or NDCs, for example, and then trying to undertake some of the concrete actions in closing some of these knowledge gaps. So in closing, what I wanted to say, maybe go to your final slide, I think it's fine, is we, by the work that we are doing with the Nairobi work on the ocean space, we feel that the work we are doing with the Ocean Expert Group adds a value in terms of learning, but also in terms of responding to some of the challenges that the countries are facing in the context of oceans. And we see there is also opportunity for us to do more, especially now in terms of implementing Paris Agreement, for example. So there's a lot of opportunities that we are exploring going from here, and we look forward to also engaging in this context with the Second Trust as we move forward in closing some of these knowledge gaps. Thank you so much for your time, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Rogina. A quick question from my side first before going into the flow. How do you think countries like Sri Lanka would more engaged in the Nairobi work program or the process that you described right now?
There are a couple of entry points. The first being, as I mentioned, the government inputs are considered as a main input when we develop our action plan with the expert group. So it might not be specific to our country need, but a lot of the work we are doing is in response to our countries as a group, like least developed countries or small island developing states. So there are a lot of action that are emerging out of the Nairobi work program, which is engaging Sri Lanka as one of the national government, but also in terms of benefiting as one of the user. And another opportunity of engagement, I think, is definitely through Slick and Trust, because Slick and Trust is a Nairobi Work Program partner. So a lot of the needs that are emerging out of the space is also then channeled through our partners. So this is also a way that the knowledge needs can be shared or can be shared through this expert group, which then informs the work that we are doing.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Yeah, there's a hand was. Can you get a mic through?
Thank you, Rogina. I just want to clarify to the audience. So Slick and Trust works as a think tank, and we contribute to the knowledge products of Nairobi Work Program. And Nairobi Work Program has a lot of partners across the world in different stakeholder groups. And I feel case studies and good experiences of countries can be shared and enhance the knowledge base of Nairobi Work Program. So if even the case studies we had here, some being research, some being pilots, might contribute to scaling up the work that's happening in the Nairobi Work Program, isn't it? And maybe we could have a formalized process of having these case studies put together as a knowledge product and submitting as the output. I forgot, just to clarify, also we are here with the government of Sri Lanka, as I mentioned to you, and the Marine Environment Protection Authority that has convened the research symposium, which is happening for the 6th time. So there'll be a lot of products that could be synthesized and submitted as a knowledge product for Nairobi Work Program as well.
Absolutely, Busita, and that's definitely where you can provide further insights, because one of the thing we do as a Nairobi Work Program, which we have this online portal called Adaptation Knowledge Portal, as Busita mentioned. The case studies are something we can definitely communicate via the portal, but again, this case studies will also be used or integrated in terms of our work we do with the list developed countries expert group, for example, in connection with the NAPS. So these case studies also have a lot of value in informing the work beyond the portal. Yes.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Rajina, so joining for the 6th National Symposium, sharing the work that the Nairobi Work Program is doing. Thanks a lot from Slick and Trust and also MEPA, the Marine Environmental Protection Authority of Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So before going into the next session, we will quickly ask the panelists from the previous session to come back again to the head table to do the certificate presentation for the participants. Yeah, so the first one was through Zoom, so we will only invite the people who are physically present. Ms. Senasha Ekanayaka. Mr. Kavindu Ediriveera. Ms. R. Vitarage. Thank you very much. I would also like to invite the Madam Chairperson and yep. So now it's to present the tokens of appreciation to the panel. I would first invite Madam Chairperson, Ms. Darshini Lahadapura of the Marine Environmental Protection Authority, and then Mr. Sarath Jayamanna, former Chairman Bribery Commission, former Additional Solicitor General, President Council, also to join in presenting the mementos. Dr. Tani also with us. Ms. Wasita Vijayanayaka for chairing the panel. Mr. Sabantha Gunasekara. Former Deputy Director of Customs. Yeah. Mr. Jagat Gunasekara, DG Operations, MEPA. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you. So we'll take a quick tea break and come back for the next discussion. 15 minutes tea break and let's get back. 10. Okay, it's shortened to 10 minutes. Yeah, so since it's already 4:30, could you take your snacks and also bring in the coffee, tea or coffee inside, and we'll start quickly in 10 minutes.
new practices. Even the small fish, pelagic fish, and even the reef fishes are catching. All earlier they were bycatch. What my observation for last 3-4 decades, they were bycatch earlier. Now it's target catching. It's a very different trend. So that is the overfishing problem and the illegal type of fishing gears, and also the pollution is also heavy, especially in the northern parts as well as other parts of the country. So we have to take important, attention on these things through the enforcement, through the addressing the gaps, awareness, and the enforcement is very important, addressing the gaps, because lack of awareness is one of the key issues, and also the proper enforcement. So in my observation, that is in front of the officials. Different government officials were there in front of all those officials. These illegal activities taken place. It's a normal thing, especially in the northern areas. But other areas also is happening, but especially MENA area is critical. So the government and the private stakeholders should take some action immediately, otherwise it will affect the climate change and also to our natural resources, especially marine resources will affect badly, and also the pollution and the destruction of the entire ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunasekara. I have some repeat questions to ask back, but I'll hold that until other ideas are.
Yes. Good evening. I'm representing Sri Lanka Ports Authority. I have 2 questions. One with regard to the lesson learned from New Diamond vessel incident, and I have been participating a few more workshops, and I was looking for, wondering, is there any lesson learned from that particular incident? I think when the way it was handled was, I think, not satisfied by anyone. There should be a holistic approach by all the government entities, and we have to make a mechanism, I suggestion, and in the future, according to our mandates, various government entities have various mandates and resources, and there should be a proper mechanism and the future such scale accidents in the future. The second one, there is something called STS operation, ship-to-ship operation. That is more than about 300 metric tons, 300,000 metric tons being transported from one tanker to other tanker while being moving at open sea. It's normally those vessels get the approval from MEPA as well as authority, and the issue is when I check with legal requirements, and there is no way we can stop them being done at the open sea of beyond 12 miles. But still they get the resources from the nearby coastal countries, and is there any way where we can consider, because in case if there is any accidents while doing ship-to-ship transfer, we won't normally economically we don't get anything other than just few service providers get few more dollars, but it's not economically viable at all, and we have to look into that matter, because when I was a Deputy Harbour Master in Trincomalee, there was an accident as well, and no one noticed that there was an accident. And when there's new mooring master was changed, I questioned him why you are sending him another mooring master. Then I found out that there was an accident while trying to get these vessels together in order to carry out the operation. So there's a huge risk for STS operation, and you'll have to look into this matter before being given the approvals to those STS operation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Any further ideas? Marine sector, blue economy and climate action. What should we focus on? What activities that we should be focusing on?
I think the research symposium itself provided us with certain areas to focus on. But looking into how ecosystems and biodiversity conservation can contribute to this would be one, because in climate action, for example, mangroves, seagrass, all these would play a key role in mitigating emissions. Additionally, also creating livelihoods, so it will link with blue economy as well. And then I think the session presentations had a key component about how private-public partnerships could contribute, plus stakeholders could be engaged in a structured manner, which could then scale up the actions that are being done. And bringing it back to what was asked in the previous question also, what would be the suggestions to address would be the like the issues are there, so getting suggestions from stakeholders and then documenting the lessons learned and identifying to do better. And also one last thing, seizing the opportunity when it's available. So for example, I'm just making this example because it's happening at the moment, so nationally determined contributions, the review process. So this would be something to build on for the next 5 years, and making sure that those things are incorporated at that point would be very important. Similarly, SDG localizing. So identifying key entry points at country level, including the stars for prosperity, and seeing how all these could align, then different actors doing different things on the same topic. So this would be very important if we want to scale up activities rather than duplicate the finance or the same activity by different people. So thank you.
Thank you. Yep. So actually, Wasita gave an starting to the other, probably jumped a question and went on to the third one, entry points. But yeah, we could go on to those as well. I just jot down from what Mr. Gunasekara said. Say, to prevent pollution, ocean pollution or overfishing, maybe by the large vessels, do we have any like legal gaps, issues in like, you know, inadequacy in policies, that sort of thing, those things that were mentioned as action points to get into those? Are there any barriers or insufficient laws to get into it? Or during the new diamond process, did we encounter that existing laws and policies were not sufficient to act quickly? Any ideas on that?
Yes, I am representing Department of Fisheries. Actually, we know the resources, fishing resources, especially in the coastal area, highly depleted due to the overexploitation. So it is the one of reason for the if we consider in the coastal area, most of the people are in the poverty line. I think it is one of the reason for that their poverty. Also a reason, as they have low income because of that catching low fish. So it is the reason for that. I think they are involving illegal fishing activities actually. So I think if we can provide alternative jobs or alternative employments, I think it is better to the change their life. And also the narcotic is another problem. They are addicted to, especially in the narcotics. So most of the people are addicted to liquors or drugs. So it is a very important thing to consider. So this is my idea.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Chairperson, you could go.
Yes. Well, one thing I actually, prior to I answer the question, I would like to know the issues that you have in your mind. You told us that there are issues. There were issues when we were fighting against the fire and the oil spill happened due to empty New Diamond. So if you can elaborate, then I'll be able to explain our side of the story.
Issue what I was raised as an issue, because initial stage actually prevention of the pollution is the key factor, and the MEPA can interfere after there, if there is any pollution, but before there is a pollution, if that New Diamond scale pollution if happened there, then the amount of damage to the environment would not be able to even imagine. So that sort of pollution, before pollution we could have extinguished the fire. That firefighting, I think since I personally involved, I sent the team on board, but they couldn't board the vessel, and they were volunteered to go there, and even we sent the high expansion foam there, and but I don't know, still I don't know the reason, but it was not coordinated, and they were not allowed to board the vessel at that time. So we didn't have a spare tugs to send them board because we all commercially engaged. So I couldn't send the spare tug for that location. So they had to use the naval boats, and with unknown reason, they were not allowed to board the vessel. So, but I felt at that time, initially it was not coordinated because no one knows who should take the lead, and there was no proper mechanism established there. So that's what I was suggesting, that the Director General of Merchant Shipping, the Navy, then the other resources from Ports Authority should be used, and in addition, then the Colombo Dockyard, the firefighting team, because they have a very good firefighting team with years of firefighting inside the board, on board vessels. So those expertise should use.
Actually, when we got to know the incident, we act because our part is actually begins from the point the oil spill or the environmental pollution occurs. So until such time, I can categorize this incident into two parts. One is the salvage part, and then the pollution prevention part. The basically salvage part actually leadership the leadership was taken by Sri Lanka Navy. There be the statutory salvers actually. Yes. So you can yeah, you can actually give your feedback afterwards. So basically, MEPA is given the mandate to take the leadership in the case of national scale oil spill. So according to our this thing, it is two activities: salvage and pollution prevention. And when we got to know the incident, we actually immediately we called the IMT. We knew that there'll be this kind of situation, but then we were suppressed by certain high power institutions saying there won't be any oil spill. From the beginning, we anticipated and we forecasted. If you could remember the very first press conference or the media conference that we had at the what do you call this government media center, we highlighted and we raised the concern that there will be a possibility of oil spill, but then it was not considered as that time. And we wanted to go to the site, and that also was, yes. Yeah.
Actually, these discussions going on air. So if we discuss everything, we have to be very sensitive and sensible. We can discuss everything in person. We can discuss, but some information is critical. Yeah, that's what that's. I know she can answer. I can answer. You also get question, but we can definitely sit and discuss and come to a conclusion. Therefore, when you answer, ma'am, be careful and when you question, be for the understanding of the audience. So everything is there's nothing to be hidden. Everything is transparent. We can discuss. This goes on air. Very sensible when you answer, ma'am. Thank you. So sorry for this disturbance.
So we were requested to go on site, but then we didn't get the approval. But then we call IMT, and we from MEPA's end actually we planned accordingly. Even prior to oil spill, we actually contacted all the stakeholders who are in the IMT incident management team, and we deployed them. We got down all the resources. One lacking part from MEPA is that we are being a very small government entity. We are not given much resources, financially basically, and we didn't have enough oil spill combat material with us. So that is one of the areas that we'll have to improve just to face this kind of major scale oil spill. We categorize this as a tier 2 oil spill. There are 3 tiers. Tier 1 is less than 50 metric tons of oil. 50 to 100 metric tons of oil is categorized as tier 2, and sorry, beyond that is tier 3. So basically we categorize this as initially, I mean, with the information and with the experience that we had, we categorize this as this will be a tier 2 oil spill. So we planned accordingly, and we didn't have within ourselves much resources, so we actually got down all the stakeholders. We mapped, we planned, and we deployed all these resources, manpower and everything to the location. And with the support of Honorable AG, I would commend his support. He actually instructed us and ordered us to go to the site, and after that we were actually allowed to go to the site on scene, and our team was able to do some inspection there afterwards, and we have taken oil samples, water samples. Our team actually observed the environmental pollutions there, and accordingly we send all these samples to government analysts and also to private sector organizations to see whether the oil spill occurred, whether this is crude oil or heavy fuel, furnace oil for ships, which is used for ships as the fuel for ship. So basically we have done all that part. I know that you are highlighting the steps that we could have taken prior to the oil spill to counter I mean, just to prevent the oil spill. That is your point that you are highlighting. But at the outset, I would like to say MEPA is mandated only to counter oil spill. So there are many other stakeholders, and this would be a good incident that we can talk to all the stakeholders and come to a conclusion to have a collective mechanism to counter that kind of situation. And also, now there were many concerns highlighted during this empty New Diamond issue, that the government could have done this, government could have done that, because somehow there was concern that whether we can salvage that and whether we can get the ship to one of our ports, and whether we can sell this crude oil, whether we can dismantle the ship. There were many concerns, but we cannot do all those things. Being a responsible government, we are not pirates, we are not, Simbads. So basically, I think our agencies actually, they act accordingly, very responsible manner, and we were able to, according to our standards, our levels, our capacities, we were able to anyway combat the fire, and then we actually were able to control the oil spill. And then we actually were able to claim 442 million rupees from the insurer of the vessel as the cost incurred to Sri Lankan entities, Sri Lankan institutions, and out of that 52 million is for MEPA's expenses. And afterwards, when we analyzed the situation, we found out that the captain of the vessel has not acted in due diligence. There are many negligence from his part. So we actually filed a criminal action against him at the Colombo High Court, and we were able to, he actually plead guilty and fined him 20 million. And this 442 million and 12 million, both they paid, and that money actually has very immediately it was actually transferred to the treasury. So after they transferred money to treasury only, we released the vessel. And as a third activity, third step, we actually had a very comprehensive analysis of the area to ascertain, to assess the environmental damages caused from the oil spill. And actually it took nearly 3-4 months for us to finalize. Nearly 15 to 18 experts were there in the committee, and after detailed analysis we were able to assess this, and it was actually amounted to 19 million US dollars, the environmental cost or the environmental damages. And we have submitted the report to the Honorable AG, and he has sent this to the insurer of the vessel, the local representatives of the insurer of the vessel, and it is yet to communicate with that party. So basically I think from MEPA's end we have taken whatever the steps that we can do, but then as we correctly mentioned, there are a lot of areas for improvement with the other stakeholders. I think once we finalize these environmental aspects, we are going to have a session with all the stakeholders with our learnings and to identify the areas for improvement. Thank you.
If I add something to what my chairperson mentioned, actually we all got the information about the ship early in the morning, so we first gave the priority for the safeguard of the life of the seafarers. So in that case we didn't touch, we were planning everything. Then we were waiting until the safety of the ship was secured and the fire was doused and everything. Then we wait. Then as the third step, we came into the scene and just check for the pollution happened in the ocean. So therefore we took some time to enter into the scenario. But what we learned during the whole the incident was huge, because we understood that we didn't have enough resources to tackle this sort of the situation. We knew that our knowledge base is very less regarding, especially something happened offshore. When it happens in the area where the other stakeholders, like other countries, come into action. At the same time, lots of issues with our experience working on the offshore areas, and then logistics, how we operate from coast to up to those deep areas, and mandates of the institutes. So then there was issue with overlapping. There was lots of even if it happens very smoothly from the outside, lots of discussions, lots of arguments, lots of things happened, and again some personal issues were there. Therefore we learned a lot. We can even write a book on that. But somehow at the end what happened was, somehow we were able to get some benefits to the country. Even there is even some may argue that is not enough, but we solve it in a more more practical way as far as our understanding. But still we learned a lot. Then what we need is to sit down and analyze this and do a post-mortem and learn where we went wrong and what are the things we did correctly. At the same time, we had to understand what are the agencies highlighted during the whole process and what are the agencies overlooked. So when some agencies were overlooked, there was some hurtings happen, I know for sure. But that's the whole exercise was a new thing and something we learned from the top to from the very beginning to end. I think we can solve that. I think in next couple of months' time, MEPA's role is to again sit down and even discuss with all the stakeholders and make this part correctly. When it happens, we wish that it will not happen, but if something happens at the next time, we will do it more practical and way without overlapping our jurisdictions, and keep recognizing all the agencies involved. So those are things we learned, but so I think maybe that will be ultimately converted into a book. That's our plan. Even you also will be invited for that. So that's the whole story about New Diamond. But everything we can't discuss openly. But these are the
go there and take the command, on-scene command, because MEPA has the mandate. Because we couldn't do that because by that time the spill was over, all the actions was taken. But then, based on that judgment as well, order as well, we'll be able to take the leadership in planning as well as on-scene. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that overall discussion on empty diamond, like open, like it's one incident, but it covers up the 4 questions. If you can put back again, this, as you mentioned, everyone mentioned, is a learning point for all of us. Not just this incident, but to it just opened up situation that there is issues with understanding whose responsibility is what, then who should come on first. So all this is what was highlighted all throughout, that it's not only for situation like this. So that's one particular incident where the pollution is very clearly visible in large scale at once, but just like what we see on land, also on the marine environment, there's quick impacts that we can see and also slow onsets that we don't see, like the plastic pollution mentioned, the overfishing. All these are happening at a very slow rate, but the impact after a particular time is huge. So, and even for all these things, there will be different entities who are responsible, who should take action at different levels. So if this incident, if we could use, and it also provides a very good entry point, the third one and also the fourth one, that we are trying to understand whose role is what. So this would actually be a very good entry point for all of us to start up and see if something similar, and not necessarily oil spills, but many other things that relates to climate action and enhancing the blue economy to the benefit of the country. This, if we could use as entry point and start and expanding our horizons to see what other entities, like now we are looking, just think of the Navy, which is we did is big in Sri Lanka, and it was doing a very good job during the wartime. Now can't we use that all the resources to benefit of the environment and the country to enhance its economy? So all those things and many other aspects, like the researchers that we saw, give some answers to the questions that we put down. We are almost out of time. 4 minutes for someone to give one or two burning issues that you would like to give out. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So then, you have anything to mention, Doctor? Yeah. Mr. Jagat, you are wanted. Is he in? Dr. Tan, you would go?
This is regarding ship-to-ship operations, the question raised. Actually, regarding our regulations, I think we can give the permit, but still there are lots of issues, as he mentioned. Lots of, even though the profits is very less, if something happens to the environment, if some oil amount of oil starts leaking to the environment, the damage would be very much higher. That will be a cost for the country. Therefore, now at the moment we are amending our act, but for ship-to-ship transfer we have another regulation. So regulations will be also amended within this year time. So when we amend our regulations, all this the issues we mentioned will be included there. So then we can take precautions, and then if there's anything to be added, if you, for example, to put extra levy, we will include that, and even for when we amend the regulation, definitely we will invite them to take their concerns, and because when we amend our act, we took ideas from all the stakeholders and make it more applicable and more practical. The current amended act, even the same as the when we amend the regulations, that also will make more practical and more applicable for our countries, ultimately take the benefit for the country. Therefore, when we amend our regulation, definitely those things will be considered and incorporate our proposed amendments, and then we hope that the issues he mentioned will be can be answered. But for the moment, yes, it's happening, and we are facing some threats, but according to our acts, we cannot stop it. We can give the service, but that is the situation at the moment.
Just to add to what he mentioned, I think there are normally we issue 12 bunker license. Out of that, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or 9 licenses are given for this year. Now, basically, prior to give bunker license, one thing that we look into is that whether they have oil spill contingency plan with them. And we normally get down all these oil spill contingency plans, and then we approve that. Our team actually, they are supposed to approve all these oil spill contingency plans, because they, within themselves, they have to have their own oil spill contingency plan, or equipments and everything. So basically, that is also one of the things, one of the steps that we have taken to mitigate risk. But still, I know that there will be, the threat is very high, risk is very high. So basically, as Attorney mentioned, we can get your inputs also to improve the regulations, which we are will be doing very soon. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we are coming to the close of the session, the entire program, which we had for 2 days. The 6th Symposium, National Symposium on Marine Environment, Ocean-Based Solutions and Policy Framework for Enhanced Climate Action and Blue Economy. So we had 4 fruitful sessions and a lot of insight, research ideas and pilot projects that should come up, and also the last discussion which brought out like what we should be doing to enhance climate action and blue economy in the marine environment. To close off the session and thank all of you, I would like to invite the person who worked very hard behind the scene for this, Ms. Tharata Ranasinghe, Marine, from the Operations Manager of the Marine Environment Protection Authority.
I consider it as a great privilege to have been called upon to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the Marine Environment Protection Authority and the Lanka Trust. I have no doubt that we have completed our task successfully. We have discussed various topics and issues related to marine environment during these 2 days. All of you assist us to successfully complete this 6th National Marine Symposium. First of all, I would like to thank our Honorable State Minister of Urban Development, Coast Conservation, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness, Dr. Nalaka Gudheva, for his participation as the chief guest to the yesterday inauguration session. I would like to thank the Secretary of Ministry of Urban Development and Housing, Mr. Sirinimal Pereira, for his participation at this event. Appreciate your support to the developments of MEPA. I, on behalf of MEPA and the Lanka Trust, opportunity to extend to a very hearty vote of thanks to Professor Aditya Alvis. As the keynote speaker, you delivered us a very informative and novel ideas in related to the marine environment and the blue economy. Once again, thank you very much, sir. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to the panel chairs, Professor Ruchira Kumartunga, Dr. Tusita Subutapala, Professor Hemanthi Ranasinghe and Ms. Wasita Vijayanayaka, who were given their contribution to success this event and share very important ideas. And again, I would like to thank as panel members of this 6th National Symposium on Marine Environment. And I would like to express my sincere thanks to the presenters who discussed their findings and for their presence here and in the virtual forum. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Mrs. Darshani Lahanpura, Chairperson of MEPA, Dr. Pradeep Kumara, General Manager, and Deputy General Manager Mr. Jagat Gunasekara of the Marine Environment Protection Authority for their guidance and advices. Thank you very much, Madam. I take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee of this event from Lanka Trust team. Without your support and dedication, we cannot complete the symposium successfully. Thank you very much, Ms. Wasita, Dennis, Damita, Kavindu, Nipun and all the team, all the work done and the contribution to successfully conduct this important event. Thank you, Regina from Nairobi Work Program, for your nice presentation. And last but not least, I would like to extend my big thank to all of my colleagues from MEPA for their hard work and the dedicated contribution. An event of this dimension cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling months in advance. It requires meticulous planning and execution and eye for details. Amaranayaka, Tarindu, Nadisha and Majid and all my colleagues, big thank for you. They have done very big work behind the screen. And I would like to thank the staff of this hotel, Cinnamon Grand Hotel staff. Finally, on behalf of Slack and Trust and MEPA, I would like to give very big thank to media people. They gave a very big media coverage for this session, and it gave a very big contribution to the MEPA and Slack and Trust effort. And finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks once again to all of you and others who made contribution to successfully conduct 6th National Symposium on Marine Environment in Sri Lanka. Thank you and have a nice evening to all of you. Thank you.
Dark. Cold. And then life. Life. Life everywhere. Diverse. Rich. It is the blue heart of our planet. Our past. Our present. Our future. Our very survival. But our heart's health is at stake because of us. Warmer seas, ocean acidification, coastal erosion, rising sea levels, pollution, loss of ecosystems and species, unsustainable fishing, illegal activities. Our heart is broken, but it is still beating. Action and commitments are our ocean's only lifeline. Together, we can and will ensure that our ocean stays safe, secure, clean, and healthy for all of us. Today, more than ever, we will take care